Creative power is what moves the world, and Creative Conversations with Irene is a podcast series that offers insight and inspiration on how to thrive in the core essence of who you are as a woman. I'm your host, Irene Chong, and it thrills my heart to see more women awaken and come alive to your feminine intelligence. Listen in for soul and strategy to create your best life ever. Don't forget to subscribe or follow us on social media to receive updates on new episodes. Today, I'm really excited to have Vanessa Holliday as my guest on Creative Conversations with Irene. Vanessa is a certified music therapist, sound muse, astrologer, and voice and womb somatic practitioner. And just that one sentence description of what you do, Vanessa, it intrigues me because it sounds like you have a very unique combination of modalities that you bring into your work. And because so much of what you do is connected to the feminine intelligence that we as women carry in our voice and womb, there's a lot to unpack here that I want to go into. But I also really want to start with getting you to share your personal story. Especially for audiences who are new to you, can you say more about what it was that brought you to explore the feminine creative flow that you now bring to your work?
Thank you, Irene, for having me here. And wow, it's been such a beautiful, beautiful journey to where I am now. And there has been this constant weave of sound, this golden thread of sound that has just really been woven intricately since I was actually in my mom's womb. And you know, if I go into my mother and what I remember as a child is she would always be singing lullabies. Her gentle, soothing voice was always singing beautiful lullabies. And growing up in, I was born in Zimbabwe, in South Africa, and we are known for, wildlife. And as a young child, I'd often be going on safaris and just being very in tune with nature sounds and sounds of animals. And I just remember my mom always teaching us to make the sounds of various animals with our voices. And I've always been very artistic, very creative as a young child. My journey actually started in movement, dancing. And so I took up a lot of modern dancing and danced often as a child, and having my friends over and literally choreographing dance theatricals, and always loved to be on stage, but really just moving. So moving was really my medicine. And then I loved music. So I would often, take out my parents' vinyls back in the day and be playing all of their 70s, 80s. My mom loved Elvis Presley. So we had all of the Elvis, the Bee Gees. What were some of the other ones? So many of the 70s, 80s music, and just loved to put the vinyl on and just to hear the music playing, and then would dance and move and sing. And then interesting enough is my career in high school actually led me to becoming a DJ. So I traveled all over. I was very fortunate enough to travel all over Africa. I mean, Botswana, Namibia, Kenya, Zimbabwe, all over Africa, playing at various festivals, and just really bringing that rich cultural music I've literally played all the different genres of music. If you say what was your one genre that you played, I loved music for music. So I really just played a whole different, depending on the type of event, I would craft the music according to that specific event. And then I was also hosted on a radio show in university, and yeah, just really also bringing music and sound, and speaking about sound and music. And yeah, so as you can see, I've had it weaved throughout. And I would say when I was around 30 years old, because remember, I had been DJing and traveling the world since 17.
Wow.
And yes, so it was almost, what, over a decade?
And were you also studying music in university?
So I was studying music, but my parents were quite very traditional. So they were always encouraging my siblings that you can have the music kind of on the side, but let's get a real job.
Yeah, yeah. How did they feel about you becoming a DJ, especially your mom? Because I feel that your relationship with your mom comes into play a lot here. Yeah, just share a little bit more about that.
So me and my mom have a really, really beautiful relationship, and we are very, very close. And my mom has always been very supportive, actually. But she's also been my greatest influence as well. And I feel that I always did want to please and make my mom happy, you know. Um, and so I've always been very clever in kind of like doing both. So I realized the importance of you know, having a degree, and I went the route of marketing. So I did public relations, I did writing, I did traditional marketing, and selling and sales, which is great actually to have that knowledge as well as having the creative side as well. So I always had quite a knack of being super creative, but also finding ways to actually bring it to people as well. So I really think my mom was a beautiful influence. And I think I was a wonderful influence on her as well, because I actually showed her, I like to say, I showed her the world of, you know, that you can actually make a living being a creator, being, you know, whatever that art is. And for me, my art is sound, and taking people through connecting with the power of sound, connecting with, and then very much also using with women, connecting with the power of your own voice, and really being able to take, you know, take up space. And how do you express through the voice in your own unique frequency? So my mom has come to visit me in Bali, as I currently reside in Bali now, and she's come to see me perform at these beautiful sound pyramids in Bali. And she was completely blown away. And you know, she said, I actually brought her to tears in one of my sound healing journeys. And she just said, like, I am just so utterly proud of you. So
Yeah.
yeah.
I love hearing all of that because, you know, as you were sharing, I was really getting a sense of your creativity and how coming into authentic expression is so important for you, for someone who as a child was exposed to such a rich and varied life already, and also having traveled from South Africa to now Southeast Asia. It's also interesting that you have this rich plethora of experiences. But I'm pretty sure that you've also faced, you know, your fair share of challenges when it comes to expressing your gifts, you know, finding your way, for example, from doing marketing to DJing to now doing what it is that you do, to especially helping women connect with their voices and their wombs. I would love to hear, like, on a personal level for you, when it came to connecting the two and to healing your own vocal expression, as well as healing whatever wounds you carried in your womb, perhaps from your lineage, you know, like, what was it like for you as you underwent your own personal journey and evolution?
Yes. So I really came to this juncture in my life. They call it the Saturn return, 29, 30.
Mhm.
And that's when I had my biggest challenge, but biggest growth. And from DJing for over a decade, and being in this very masculine dominated industry, I was one of 3 women in South Africa that was kind of in this very male dominated industry, because everyone thought, oh, it's more seen as a DJ, it's a male's job, and also being more in my masculine as well, because of my parents did separate when I was 6 turning 7, and my father does come from alcoholic, emotionally not available. And I remember as a young child, like really kind of stepping into completely being independent, and kind of being very self-sufficient from that separation. And that's why, at 17, I was traveling around the world and, really being really a noticeable DJ, female DJ. But really, yeah, coming into independence at actually quite a young age, and being in this do masculine orientated, wanting to succeed and wanting to be seen, and really kind of being cut off from the deep feminine current of being more cyclical and being more in tune with the body.
And what was it that made you come back to it? You've mentioned your Saturn return, right? Was there a major trigger point or crisis that woke you up and said, you can't keep on doing what it is that you were doing, and that you've got to come more into your feminine essence? What was that?
Yes, that was burnout and depression. From the constant traveling, as a DJ, you live actually by night and you sleep by day. So can you imagine how my cycle, my inner, that's what I was saying, it's like my whole inner cycle, and you do that over a decade, it's eventually going to catch up. And the constant traveling, being in airports, being in hotels, and just feeling as if like, oh, and obviously as being really busy, suppressing my emotions, not giving myself the capacity to really feel, because I was just constantly busy doing life, that I was completely overriding my body's wisdom, and eventually yeah,
It's so
eventually.
interesting that you bring this up, because I think there is sometimes when I'm not in the music circuit, and I suppose I do have that impression that, oh, DJs, they lead this glamorous party lifestyle. But now that you brought it up, I'm like, yeah, it sounds exhausting. I think a lot of singers, celebrities, they may also face the same issue. So for you, like, now that you mention it, you were overriding, suppressing a lot of emotions that you needed to process when you finally hit that crisis point. And I'm so glad that, where you are now, I just see you, like, you're radiating health and you're glowing. I'm really intrigued, right? How did you make that transition, that healing journey? I'm sure it involves bringing your womb expression and your vocal expression together. So can you share more about that?
Yes. So it really took me to slowing down and really finding the time to be more still. So what I actually did is I went into was it 11 days? It's a Vipassana silent meditation, where you sit in silence for 11 days and you just meditate. And that was kind of like the start of my journey. And I deeply knew I had come to a point where I was like, do I really want to continue this path? Can I see this path as being something that I can do for another 10, 20 years? And I knew that if I carried on, that it was going to even progressively be worse. And so I went into silence, into meditation, and I decided to actually give up the DJ. And I had no idea what I was going to do next. And coming out of the silent meditation, what came to me is, yes, deeply connecting to my body again and going, wow, I have all of these emotions that have been suppressed. I've completely negated and neglected my body. And this is really where my healing journey began. And I mean, this took me into like a ricochet of many things that I dived into, because 10 years later now, I'm 40. And so it's been a long, beautiful journey. And so when I came out of the Vipassana, I knew that I wanted it was, the sound was still there. I still wanted to dive into frequency, energy, vibration, but in a whole new light. So that's actually when what I did is I actually went back into studying. And I took up eurythmy, which is part of the Rudolf Steiner, part of anthroposophy, part of, you may have heard of the Waldorf schools. And I joined up for a 4-year training. It's an honors degree in movement dance, and so it's healing through movement and using your body as a tool for creating sounds, and like this is the instrument. And this is where I dive deeper into the voice and womb connection and expression. So it all trickled from this training of Steiner's work. And the movement of eurythmy is actually very much based in our ancient cultures, actually coming from ancient Greece. In the ancient temple dances that they used to do in ancient Greece. So a lot of rich depth and culture from this training. So yeah.
What I'm getting as well, there's a lot of intellectual rigor in the work that you do. You also strike me as someone who loves doing research and delving deep in the mental realm. And I'm just wondering, because you mentioned how important it is for us as women to come back into our bodies. And earlier you also mentioned the importance of following your cycle. And because I know that there is this special interest that you have in supporting women in awakening to their voice, as well as listening and attuning more deeply, becoming more present to their womb wisdom, I'm wondering, do you have any tips to share? It strikes me as you have gained all this knowledge and experience from a very rich and varied life, as well as study and exploration. So for women who are intrigued and curious and they want to learn more, what are some of the key things that you can share that we can, I'm just thinking like, I know that you have shared, the relationship between the throat and the womb, even down to what it looks like and what it symbolically also represents, right? Can you say more about that? And the reason I'm asking this is because, as you know, this podcast series is about helping women awaken to their creativity. And creativity is a huge word, but I'm really seeing it as how can we as women co-create a more amazing life for ourselves, and thereby, let it spread out, have that collective ripple effect out into the world, so that more women can step into their authentic expression and live their brilliance?
Yes.
What's your take on it?
Yes. Yes. So I believe that it's the voice in the womb, which is the gateway or a portal into your greatest power. I believe that the voice in the womb is the two most powerful places, spaces in a woman's body that she needs to take up space. Because often we have suppressed our voices, we've shamed our voices, we don't allow this full capacity of this beautiful instrument. We're probably maybe using only 10% of its capacity, when there's a whole beautiful range that can be expressed, that only you can express, because your voice is your own unique vibration. It's like a fingerprint, or if we have to look at a snowflake, you have your own frequency, timbre, sound. And it's about really inhabiting the womb space, because I said, like, the womb space is where we get to grow life. We can nurture and grow life. We actually, as women, pull a soul into our bodies and bring it into physical form. If that is not the best magical, I was going to say trick, but magical gift.
I see it as like a magical miracle almost, right? It's that miracle that we as women have to give life, to bring forth life.
We are life givers. We sustain and we nourish life. And so the womb space is where we birth our creations. And I say babies because you can birth a physical baby, but maybe your other baby is a certain project that you're wanting to birth. We can see it like that. And so the womb space is this beautiful portal for us to birth our creations. And then the voice is the place where we speak our creations into form. And so for a woman to really bring these two spaces, and inhabit them, is when she's really stepping into her power. And as you were saying, Irene, they are connected. If women if they might have seen, you can even Google the voice and womb connection images, and you can see how identical they look in their anatomy. And then in the body, they are connected via the vagus nerve, which is that longest nerve in our body. And you may have heard of vagal toning, vagal stimulation. So as the vagus nerve runs from our brain all the way through our ears, our face, coming in through to the larynx, down all the way into our heart, all the way into our major organs, and all the way down into our womb, into the tailbone. And when we start to stimulate our vagus nerve, you can imagine that we are actually stimulating our entire nervous system. So I like to also say that the voice is a gateway into our nervous system, so that we can actually regulate our nervous system with our very own voice. And the reason why I love the voice as well, Irene, is that it's with you all the time. So you can, simple exercises, which we can speak into, but you can use your voice while you're driving in your car, while you're washing your dishes. You can bring in the voice and the toning and sound through your daily life, weaving it in. as I said, the voice is this gateway into our nervous system for bringing our nervous system into regulation, for getting out of this, getting out of fight, flight, freeze, and basically switching the body online and being and coming from a place of thrival versus survival.
Mm. Well, there's so many pieces here that we can really go into, and I think what I'm most intrigued, so I'm going to start there, is, earlier on you talked about vagal toning. I love that connection between, right now there's a lot of talk about breath work and using breath to regulate our bodies and come back to a place of, more parasympathetic coherence. But it sounds like, hey, you can also use the voice to do that. And there, like another piece I was thinking about as you were sharing was, I remember that when I was a child, I was so self-conscious about my voice. I really wanted to join the choir because my older sister was in the choir. And I thought, oh, wouldn't it be nice if I could do that as well? But I was so shy and I didn't feel that my voice was good enough. So that stopped me from even trying out. And I'm also thinking that this is probably something that a lot of women face as well, because earlier on you were talking about suppression of our voices, right? As women, potentially not speaking up for and expressing our truth. So this piece around, hey, let's try using the voice and activate it in very gentle ways to help ourselves arrive back at a place of coherence within our bodies, doing the inner work with our voices first before we then step out into the world and express ourselves. I am wondering, and there's so many pieces here, so bear with me as I go into this creative tangent, because I know another piece that that I was very curious and I wanted to ask you about was that earlier on you mentioned your relationship with your mom and how beautiful that was in helping her to see and bring her to tears when she saw the work that you now do. I also know that you have a daughter. So I'm also very intrigued by this relationship of, who you were as a daughter, facing some of the, I would say, facing some of the trauma in having your parents separate and therefore going to a very masculine mode, masculine way of being, and then arriving at a place of healing and then giving birth to your own daughter. And the reason why I really want to ask this also is because earlier on you mentioned the womb, like we as women are life givers. And I was wondering, in your own personal evolution as a woman, now as a mother, did you find anything that changed when you stepped into that new role? How did you bring more of your voice and also more of your womb power, having experienced that creation of life, that physical birthing process?
Yes. So I did want to share that it was a journey also to fall, I don't want to say fall pregnant actually, because to bring child, I like that, to bring child into the womb, is that I was on the pill for many years.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
And because, from how I was taught in school, I'm probably sure many women, is that, if you had any acne, you were just put on the pill. Or to not fall pregnant, just go onto the pill. And through coming into this work, I had discovered that the pill was actually also making me have lots of PMS symptoms, heavy bleeding, and very painful periods. And I also discovered as well that the pill as well does actually flatline your hormones. So you're not really having a natural cycle. And so my journey of discovering, of really wanting to come into more of my natural cycle and my natural flow of my hormones, and really coming into my understanding more of my menstrual cycle was also one of the first entry points into really coming to inhabit my body and my womb. And so I did lots of work around the menstrual cycle and what's every single season, and tracking my cycle. I did find a fertility awareness method practitioner who assisted me to come also to find more of the natural cycle of my menstrual cycle. And so this was incredible work, because you're working deeply with your cycle and monitoring it. And so actually, as soon as I came off the pill in September of 2020, I fell pregnant straight away in October. October. So in 1 month, I quickly fell pregnant. And 3 months later, I did have, in December, I had the miscarriage. And that was my first, real initiation of experiencing death. No one else in my family has really passed away. So yeah, just really coming into this impermanence of life, that there's this death and rebirth cycle. And this took me even deeper into understanding my womb and my body, and really being with grief and the releasing, but still being in this the importance of the death rebirth cycle of really actually, wow, I feel like I'm coming into this initiation of that there is this death and rebirth cycle. So this took me deeper into this is where I got to use a lot of my sound and my voice as healing medicine. I would often be taking time to use my voice, to tone, to sing, to sound, and to really use my voice in a very intentional way to heal my womb. And that was my medicine, was my voice. I was like, okay, I'm going to really, I know, from the mind that yes, there's this connection between the voice and the womb, but now I'm going to go into the soma, into the body, and really dedicate the next, it was around 2-3 months of like really meeting my voice in a very deep, intimate way, in a very spiritual practice, and toning and sounding and connecting intentionally with my womb, and doing a lot of healing around my womb, around my feminine line. And then 3 months later, I conceived in the exact location of the first conception. So me and my partner went off into the Cedarburg Mountains, where I actually fell pregnant the first time. And can you believe it? Fell pregnant again the second time in this beautiful location in the Cedarburg, and took me to the birth of my daughter now, Phoenix Rose. And yes, wow, she is by far my greatest and most exquisite creation. And I really say that she was birthed through sound, because I used sound in my birth as well, because as we said, the voice and the womb is connected. So if you release tension, release, if constricted and tight in the jaw is going to make it constricted and tight in the womb. So really releasing the jaw, creating sounds is going to assist the womb to open. And there's a reason why these sounds that we create in birth that actually can never be created again, because they really are natural pain relief, is the sounds. And so I really, really did connect with those raw primal sounds in my birth. And during my pregnancy as well, I mean, sounding, toning, humming, and still to this day, me and my daughter will often just, we often play and express with sound. I mean, she's not creating any words yet, so it is all sounds. Yeah, so she truly is a sound baby.
Wow, thank you for sharing such a vulnerable experience and for going deep into it. I hadn't known about your miscarriage and that amazing phoenix-like transformation that propelled you into. And I'm really loving how real and raw this conversation is getting because you're sharing very intimate, very personal things about your
Yeah.
life. And
Yeah.
yet, from sharing that, I can see the strength and also the passion with which you bring to the work that you do now. And I can totally see how working with sound can really help with, processing emotions, right? I know for you it's grief. And I know that, yeah, when you hear someone really wailing and it's like the body just needs to release and just needs to let go, how powerful that is. And I love how you mentioned, like with our period, with our menstrual cycle, it's a cycle. There is birth and there is death. There is that duality. And when we as women come into our full power, there's also that recognition that we have the ability to destroy as well as create, that we hold both. Because this podcast is primarily focused on creativity, on creating, it's easy sometimes to forget that there's also that cycle of death and dying and how important it is to honor the grieving process. I don't think, right, that you would have arrived at the creation of your daughter if you hadn't gone through that full honoring of the grief and the loss and how powerful that is. And also what a precious, precious gift your daughter is, yeah, so thank you for sharing all of that. And I know that our time has nearly come to an end. This has been a beautiful conversation. Vanessa, I know that I want to do another episode with you, but because I wanted to keep these conversations relatively bite-sized, I would like to end by asking you, for the audience who is watching or listening to this, I think you have shared so much that will sufficiently intrigue them to want to learn more about how to awaken to their voice and to even, create and give birth from that sacred portal that is their womb space. It may not be a physical birth, but there's also an energetic component, for example, in bringing out a project or in wanting to manifest, to create something. What are some of the first steps and what kind of advice would you give to someone who's watching and listening to this and wants to take the next step further?
So the exploration I feel is I do with my work is that I like to bring the body mind connection together. So I think it's so important that we actually give women education because you can't learn this stuff in university or the schools, so it's really vitally important to give the education around how our bodies work. So I really love to give women this information so that they can understand the language of your system and how it actually is connected and how it works, and kind of also understanding a little bit about trauma and how we actually go into these survival coping mechanisms, and understanding a little bit about ancestral trauma, developmental trauma, and understanding the wisdom of the body, the language of your body. So that would be kind of the first step, is really understanding this education and wisdom. And then we go into the soma, which I say is the somatics. is the where we can bring that information so that it's felt on a visceral level, that it actually bypasses the mind. Because I feel very much that we actually need to, as humans, we need to have both. We actually need to have the understanding, and then we can let that go, and then we can bring in the soma and actually and then bring in that rewiring of our nervous system on a deep cellular level. And that involves very much lots and lots and lots of practice around actually using the voice. So it's very, very practical in using the voice. And I've made it in a way, as I said, that you can use it in your daily life, that it can be interwoven into your lifestyle. So then, yes, using the voice as a tool, you're going to be creating sounds, and really using that to regulate and bring your body online.
I so agree with you that education is so key. I feel that so much has been lost in the industrialization and modernization of current society. A lot of feminine wisdom has been sidelined because it wasn't seen as important. And coming back to something that you shared at the very beginning when you talked about getting to the very masculine way of doing things, going and doing, versus slowing down, coming back to the body, feeling and processing and taking the necessary time to heal. So education, thank you for the work that you're doing in educating, and also for the containers that you hold for women in the sound healing journeys that you provide as well. So I'd just like to say that, for the audience who's intrigued and want to learn more, all the links to learn more about what Vanessa does can be found right here on the same page. All the links, social media platforms, etc., all of that will be right here. So do check it out, because if this episode has awakened and brought that idea to your head that, hey, there's something more about my voice to explore here, there's more to my womb than I had initially thought, then I would have said, I've done what I set out to do for this episode, to bring that awareness and also to bring that, I hope, that inspiration and that hope from hearing Vanessa's beautiful story of her journey, that evolution. I was just thinking that it's not just a personal inner journey, it's a geographical journey that brought you all the way around the world. And also, your own personal journey as a daughter growing up in South Africa, and I can only imagine all the kind of experiences you must have had growing up in that environment. I mean, it's a very politically charged environment as well. It's not something that we were able to go into for this episode, but I know that there must have been pieces there. And because you've mentioned ancestral trauma, right? And I'm sure you carry that in your lineage as well, as a white woman growing up in South Africa. And then now being based here in Southeast Asia, right? Daughter to mother, the evolution as DJ to a sound healer. It's like, wow, it feels like you've come full circle, but I know that it's really only just a spiral, right? You're going to go deeper and deeper into this. I love the fact that you mentioned, 30 and then to 40, 10 years later. I am excited to see how your work is going to evolve and progress in the next 10, 20, 30 years, as the world awakens, as more women awaken to their womb wisdom, and then not just awaken to it, but to thrive and to express and co-create, to give voice really to the world that they want to see, not the current paradigm that we have now, for sure.
Yes. And I do also like to say that I because one of my deepest values is transformation and growth, is that my work is also always evolving, Irene. So like if I look at my work 10 years ago to my work that I'm doing now, is that I'm always bringing shaping and molding kind of my offerings and my work so that it actually gets richer and deeper, and it's delivered where humanity is now? What are we facing right now? What are we needing to heal right now as women, right? And also wanted to say with regards to the voice, is that this work, you do not need to be a singer. This is not about reaching the high tones, you know, being able to do vibrato and all of these. It's not technical. It's about tapping into your unique expression, where you really just become this vehicle of sound, and that you're really being in integrity with the expression of the sound that wants to move through you.
Thank you for saying that. Yeah, that this is work for everyone, for every woman, right? To give voice and to give expression. That is the way I see it. It's your birthright. You know, I also love how you mentioned that your work continually evolves, because this podcast is very much about creativity. And I think that you are embodying that, you know, as we grow, as we evolve as just human beings, whatever it is that we have in our lives, we're going to constantly grow and expand and refine and develop, and that journey never stops. So it's really about just having all the tools at your disposal to help you evolve and transform into, like, the way I see it, it's the biggest, boldest, bestest version that you get to be.
Yes, beautifully said.
So thank you very much, Vanessa, for your time.
Thank you so much, Irene, and thank you everyone for watching. And yeah, thank you so much for this beautiful co-creation of sharing.
Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed this conversation and that you'll be taking away nourishing gems to create a more joyful and fulfilling life, because that's what it's all about. If you liked what you heard, do give a thumbs up and be sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on future episodes. And I'd love to hear from you. Leave a comment below and let me know your takeaways and reflections. Till next time, remember to light up the world with your beauty and creativity.